Hey guys, welcome to the second episode today of What's Your Story? If you love what I'm doing, go check out the videos, the other content that I've got out. I'm on TikTok, so all the socials, Insta, Facebook. Check it out, like, subscribe, follow on YouTube channel. That's there's lots to see, lots of good stuff coming your way. Thanks for joining in. I have with me today Nancy Palmer, and just before we get started, a hilarious story of how we met, which was at the movie theater. And this nearly whole theater was empty, and we weren't paying attention when we got to the theater and chose seats right next to Nancy. And so, but it was a divine appointment. I don't know if you believe in those, but I certainly do. And we clicked right away. And when we found out each other was a widow, then is just part of a club that you don't want to be in, but when you're in, the other one knows. So I invited Nancy today for What's Your Story, specifically What's Your Love Story. And she's going to tell us about David, right?
Right.
Yes. Okay.
His name was David Palmer, and I met him when I was, I think, 24 years old. He was fresh out of a divorce and had a 4-year-old son. And interestingly, we were moving into the same townhome development, excuse me, in Silmar, California. Small, insignificant place there, known only for earthquakes, I think. And he was moving into the first unit because that's all the money he had. It was the least expensive in the neighborhood, and I was moving into the 18th. So he moved in 2 weeks before I did. I went down to check on my house and how it was going, how it was progressing. And I saw him moving in. And since he was the first person for me to know there, I said hi to him and introduced myself. Of course, he was busy with all kinds of packages and boxes and moving furniture in. He said hi and he told me his name. And then 2 weeks later, when I had moved in and I saw him at the pool with his son, I said hi to him because I remembered his name. I'm not good at all remembering names now, but back then I remembered because he's the only person I knew. And he thought, as he would tell me later, he didn't remember. Well, he would say he remembered meeting me, but the truth is he didn't remember meeting me. That's my truth anyhow. And so when he saw me at the pool and I said his name, he thought I was coming on to him. And so that's how it started. And then I, at that time, was dating someone else. But that relationship was waning. So he asked me out, and first date was to a swap meet. If you don't know what a swap meet is, it's outdoor. Everybody sells everything on a Saturday. And
Like a flea market?
Yeah, like a flea
Okay.
market.
Mm-hmm.
So gets me in the car. I get in the car with him, and I tell him the truth is that I've been dating somebody else, but that relationship's on the outs. And and he says, this is funny. He says, so what's wrong with him? Does he smoke? And I'm sitting there with a pack of cigarettes in my purse. And so actually, no, I do, which is a habit that he got me out of pretty quickly when he told me I couldn't smoke in my own house. He didn't tell me, but made that request. So I ended up stopping smoking. That was one good benefit to having him around. And then we got to talking about, we covered some pretty good things that first date because he somehow found out that I had credit card debt, a small one at that time, because this is back in the early 80s. I had put on credit a stereo system that I was paying off, and he said, you can't do that. So anything I saw at the swap meet, I wasn't allowed to buy. I was just, he wasn't.
Good thing it was him that was the fun, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, he just pointed out some glaring things in my life that weren't going right. And so, anyhow, so that was our start. And then, as I mentioned, he had a son who was 4 years old, and I truly fell in love with his son first. And so his name is Matthew, and he's a great man, and there's a whole story to be told about him. But David lived to be a father on Disneyland Dad. And so he lived for every 2 weekends, and I pretty much got the off weekend. But I saw how devoted he was to his son, even though there was a pretty awful divorce at that time, and lingered much through Matthew's life. Um, and so I will say that I fell in love with his son first,
Oh.
and actually tried to pawn off my later to be husband on several of my girlfriends, thinking it wasn't a good match. But he just couldn't. He couldn't break himself of me when I would tell him I wasn't interested, and so the only way, since I couldn't get rid of him, I married him, and so that's how we met and how we started.
Yeah, neat. And so, how long did you date before you got married?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it was probably, I would say it was probably less than a year. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a neat twist, though, that you fell in love with his little boy
yeah,
first.
yeah.
I love that.
I still love his son.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, so, um, so when you finally got together, then, what was your wedding like? Like, how did he ask you to marry him?
Oh, um, how did he ask me to marry him? Well, let's back up just a little bit. We were camping one weekend because both of us worked, and I said to him, "Where do you think you see us in a year's time?" And he said, "Well, I see us having fun and camping and having a great time." And I said, "I don't see that. I see that. I see that married and have about to have a child."
Oh,
And so I guess I was fairly forward at that time for that. But time was ticking, and I was, desiring to have a family, and so he that kind of shook him up, and apparently he wanted to keep me. So we went about finding a ring, and I had an old friend, an old friend who was a jeweler at the time, and so we went to him to get a good deal on the ring and the stone. And when it arrived, my friend went upstairs, made and gave us the ring, gave David the ring, and then he went upstairs to go to the bathroom in the upstairs bathroom, and David said, "Here." So that was pretty much the proposal. Here, you ready to wear it? So, and then we started to plan what we thought was going to be a wedding, and was marriage.
yeah,
So
right. Everybody focuses so much on the day,
yeah,
which is important, but it's not the wedding. Though it's not the marriage. A
right.
wedding day and a marriage, two
Two
different
different
things.
things.
So, what was your marriage like?
Marriage or wedding? Are we ready to get to
Oh,
the
sorry.
wedding?
Yes,
Okay.
wedding.
So we were having some difficulties with my husband's ex-wife, and it was pretty traumatic. And the visitation was very difficult for my husband, and I hurt for him so badly. And he had a lawyer, and the lawyer said, since you're engaged and you're headed to court over this, it would probably be better if you got married now. So while we had planned a wedding in August of that year, um, we ended up getting married at the end of March so that we would be married before a court date. So
Oh,
it was a quick trip to Las Vegas.
yeah.
And the people who were supposed to go with us and be our witnesses didn't show up. And this
Oh,
is also kind of a cute story, is that it was also the weekend that was my husband's marriage to his first wife. It's their anniversary on the Saturday. So we had to wait until Sunday to get married, but we
yes.
had to be back to work on Monday. So we waited till midnight, at right after midnight, and went into the justice of the peace. And meanwhile, life is spinning for me right at this point. Like, I didn't plan on getting married this weekend. It just kind of happened. And so we get in there, and the justice of the peace, says, "What kind of vows do you want to take?" And so we took Christian vows. And in the midst of it, because it was all such rush, we're taking the Christian vows, and I firmly now understand more what a vow is. In the as I was entering into this, and it's so haphazard, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know what my husband was thinking, but he knows this. He's I was thinking, I can get out of this, I can get out of this, I can get out of this. And then in the middle of the vows, I realized that I'm saying vows to God and not to my husband. And so I quickly switched with a gulp, like, I can't get out of this. And so, and so that's the foundation of our marriage. From that, it was beautifully grown. So,
I love that you sacrificed from the beginning, if you think about it, because you switched your ideal of a wedding, you switched the date, you switched all of that. So a sacrificial love was your foundation. So then how long were you married?
We were married just shy of 32 years. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
And I would imagine your marriage was much like other marriages. Like,
it was real.
And the longer you're together, the more you sort of, for lack of better, you did a dance. So like, yes. I know with Bob and I, when I was down, he would be the one saying, "Come on, honey," like da 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 da. Or when he was down, I would be his cheerleader. And you're healing. You think you're so grown up in your 20s. And maybe in some ways we are, but like, you really spend your life healing from whatever, I think. At least Bob and I did. And I don't know. How was your marriage?
So I'll say, in the vows where you say that the two shall become one.
Yes.
It is a process.
Yes. Thank you. That's
very much a process.
Yes.
And so, yes, we worked into becoming one. And sometimes there were rips, but the rips got mended. And where they got mended, I would say they got stronger.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the whole thing was a matter of, in retrospect, I would say, well, I'll say that we weren't 100% in love with each other at the beginning. Love grew.
Yeah.
And I don't know that anyone, of course, that's only me, anyone is fully in love with their spouse as deeply as they will be over the years. It's a growing into
grows.
one.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
Which makes, when it's broken by death, makes it hard.
Yes. So what happened? Like, what was the tragedy that took him?
The tragedy that took him was that he was working, had been kind of the foreman of a Habitat for Humanity project in Clover, South Carolina.
Oh.
And it wasn't a new build for a house like so many are, but it was one of the things that Habitat was doing to keep neighborhoods up, is that if a house was falling into disrepair and the people couldn't keep it up, that would bring the home values down. So Habitat went in and helped renovate a home, at least give it a good lipstick on the outside. And so he and a few other people, quite a few from our church in the beginning, were working on painting the house and, tidying up the yard for this couple that couldn't take care of it anymore. And the last bit, there was a little bit of, I think they call it mission creep. When you go back, they want one more thing done that wasn't on the list.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them for this at all. But the one more thing is that they wanted their front stoop, which was a concrete pad in the front. They just wanted some fresh paint on it. So two other guys from our church, actually from our Sunday school, and David went down early on a Wednesday morning, with a paint and a roller on a stick. And they were just going to paint that stoop. And while they were in the midst of doing that, David just collapsed. He said a couple of things to the guys that he was with. They knew he was in trouble, and he collapsed, and they called EMT. I was at church also in working with children that day for a Bible study, watching the children. And they tried to get a hold of me and my pastor. ended up taking. They got the message. Then they scooped me up and took me to the front yard where David's body lay,
Mm.
and so that's how all that happened.
Yeah. And then for those of us left behind in this widow journey, then you start life again.
Yes.
And it's quite a different journey. I think we often in the beginning keep wanting to look back. And it was a pivotal moment for me. I wanted to look back because that's where Bob was, until I realized, no, Bob's ahead. And that shifted my focus forward. But how has the widow journey, been for you so far?
Yes, I think pretty typical. The first few months were a blur, and I had other widows around me that would gently tell me, "This is God's gift to you. That you're not going to remember much of these first few months because you have so much to do,
Mm-hmm.
and then it'll eventually hit you." Now, that's my journey, and I suspect it's quite a few journeys, but everybody's a little different. I still had my mother alive, and I still had my mother-in-law living a mile away in a nursing home that I was looking after them. So I kept up pretenses, to be honest, of being okay. Still going to Sunday school, still going to church, still teaching Bible study, all those things. All the way through, and the routines helped me. I think the routines were comforting, but behind the doors, it was no other word for it. It was ugly.
Yeah, just the anguish.
Yes.
And loneliness, even though God's there.
Yeah.
It's so different getting used to not having your other person
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And as I'm writing a book, and what I call those in the beginning are my rooted routines. My rooted routines helped in so much. Like I had jotted down, walked with Amy, walked, with Renee, walked with someone. And it was those rooted routines, the Bible study, the walking. I had two friends come, and once a month we did Crafty Club. And
yes.
It was just the three of us, but we just connected and made some silly Dollar Tree craft. And that was it. And so
I had one friend, younger than me, who was very curious about what I was going through, and she was also from my Sunday school class, but much younger, probably by 20 years. And she sought me out and asked me to walk with her. And so we would walk with her dog, and sometimes an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. And she was one of the best gifts that God gave me during that period of time, because she allowed me to cry. And she was curious about what it's like. So there was an honest curiosity. To this day, her husband's alive, and I'm so glad for that. Yes. For her. Mm-hmm. But she wanted to know what it would be like if it happened. And since that time, she lost her mother, and she reached out to me when she lost her mother, of what it would be like for her mom.
Oh,
as how she could support her mom.
Right.
So
wow. Well, I love that. Well, is there anything you want to wrap up about your love story today?
In the early years of loss, of his physical loss, he still resided with me. Mm-hmm. I still had conversations with him. Some people have dreams. I don't have dreams, but I always felt like if I was making a decision, and my husband was the head of our household, sometimes I bent the direction I wanted him to see. But I when it came to major decisions, it was together, but he held a great deal of sway because he really cared. And so post him dying and physically leaving, I still relied on his advice, as I do on my parents, because the piece that they shared of my life is still with me.
Right.
So I can still seek advice from them as well. and the patterns of their lives still live on in mine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I always think of one of our favorite songs, which was an old Garth Brooks song, "The Dance."
Mm.
You could have missed the pain, but you would have had to miss the dance.
Yeah.
And I love your love story, and I thank
you.
you for sharing it today.
Thank you.
Thanks.